You're listening to the AdCast with your host, Eric Elliott.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and jump right in. Tenelle, I want to thank you for being a guest on the AdCast today. And I want today to be a real special one. This is one like I did not want to put together some brief or a lot of questions because there's so many different things that just come into my head and a lot of people's heads. And for those of you who are tuning in, Tanel is a licensed family therapist, a licensed marriage counselor, and also a licensed addictions counselor too. So she's got all kinds of licenses. Um, so I'm just glad that she's just giving us a really valuable asset, which is her time today to talk about a few things. So Tanel, I know that I know you, but if you don't mind, introduce yourself to those people who may not know you.
Hello, world. I don't know how you don't know me yet, but I am Tenelle Jones. I am here in Charleston, South Carolina. I am licensed as a marriage family therapist, licensed as addictions counselor. I'm also actually certified as an integrated mental health professional, which all that means is I just really love to make people feel so valuable in this place we call life. And so I get a joy out of doing that every single day.
Wow, that's awesome. Tanel, it's you said something like before we started doing the recording. You said the second pandemic is coming. The second
Mhm.
pandemic, and I'm like, well, what is that? And you said it's mental health.
Yeah.
I mean, like, explain that. I mean, what? And that's a pretty powerful statement. That's like newspaper front page worthy, quotable. So, I mean, explain that for me.
Yeah, when you think about even generation from generation to generation, right? And where mental health in terms of discussions about, each generation and how it shifted and changed, and
Mhm,
maybe even not so much, but we've had 2 years of a horrible pandemic that shook the world and caused a lot of people anxiety, depression. It just changed their lives because they weren't expecting it.
mhm,
And then on top of that, to not be connected to people physically or
mhm,
even socially. And then you have social media where you have these bullies and the people comparing themselves and wanting what
mhm,
other people have. And so just so many different things going on in a society where we haven't really championed mental health like we do physical health.
mm,
Like the stigma of mental health is, still very present. We still use the words such as crazy or,
mm,
different things like that. It's and people are struggling, you see, and then you see people dying by suicide and everybody's like, well, why didn't they tell us?
yeah.
Have we created that space in this world for people to tell you that they're not okay? We spend a lot of time trying to convince people we're okay because we don't want to burden other people and
Wow.
that causes a lot of pain, right? And then the expectations about life. It's just so much going on. So, yeah.
Man, that's a lot to unpack. Let me. How do you know? How does one know when they need to pick up the phone or reach out online to someone about mental health? So how do you know when you have an issue? Or is it something that they know or the people around them would recognize it first?
I think that it's hard because some people may not know and people around you may not know, right? Because again, it's
Mhm,
it's this you're supposed to be strong. If you're looking at culture, if you're looking at genders, if you're looking at all these different things, you're supposed to be the strong black female to make
mhm,
everything happen and to support the world. A big thing about that is when we experience grief and loss, right? It's like keep it moving, don't cry.
wow,
Most people are doing a lot of like trying to maintain their energy of not crying because they don't want to
mhm,
appear sad or weak versus just allowing themselves to connect to what's happening and to feel it. So I think people don't really know, right? I don't know. Think about it with you and your homeboys. Most of the time, you're probably gonna say, "Oh, suck it up. You're okay. That girl just
yeah.
broke your heart. You'll find another girl, right? Or something." So those are the moments where we meet and be like, hey, it's okay that you're feeling this way. Let's connect to somebody if this is not a comfortable feeling.
Mhm. Now you brought up and you said strong black female. You brought that up, and I want to touch on that because when we were talking earlier, we mentioned Charlemagne and some of the good work that he's even doing in the mental health space too. Because for the longest time, and even still, Well, I think people are getting more comfortable now in the African American community saying, I want to go see a therapist. But a long time ago, it was almost like not taboo, but it was like looked down upon. Do you believe that? And also, do
Right.
you still see that today?
Unfortunately, Eric, we still see it today. People in our community still struggle with going to seek help. And I
Mm,
think one of the challenges, especially for Black men, is there are not a lot of Black male therapists oftentimes. And so they want to go, right, most people want to go to someone that looks like them, you know, going to represent their needs. And
mhm,
that could also be a barrier, I think, to getting the help that they need as well.
mhm.
And then again, just the stigma of you're not supposed to have emotions, you're a man, all those different gender, things that are placed upon people and just life. I also want to just point out that, historically people will say maybe mental health looks like this. Like you got
Mm.
to be talking to yourself, walking down the street, and or if I'm not depressed because I'm not laying in my bed. And that's depression is not about just laying in your bed. You
Yeah.
can be depressed going to work every single
You
day.
can be a functional depressed person. It's real.
Correct.
It's real.
Yes, it is real. And so I think people don't know that. And again, unfortunately, I don't think we make spaces for that
Mhm.
oftentimes in our community.
So from I know you can't talk specifically about people that you've seen, but in some of the things that you've run across, I mean, what are some things that people should look for? Because it's I know one thing with men, it's very hard to us to go to any doctor. Normally it's the other half that would say you need to go to the doctor. And
There,
normally that's the physical part, but like the mental part is usually hidden. And
yeah,
and you're right though, there may be some people who are just severely depressed and they hide it, and some of their partners may never know it. You think of like a Robin Williams. He
sure,
spent so much of his time making the world laugh, and he was hurting on the inside.
yeah. So basic things to look for is if you find yourself in this space wondering, gosh, like having more guilt about where you are in your life and the decisions that you've made.
Hmm.
Depression, I like to say, can be tied to guilt. And then you notice that there are things that you used to do that you're no longer doing, right? And your energy level is so low that the things like just everyday life can be very hard and challenging. Those are some just very small things. Your sleep starts to be impacted. Either you're sleeping
Wow.
too much or you're not sleeping enough,
Mm.
or you have insomnia, you're having a lot of nightmares. So those are just some very immediate things to kind of pay attention to when you start to question, like, what is this? And not in a like reflective way, like I want to continue to grow, but like those questions about why am I here? What's the purpose of life?
Mm.
When the pain that you're experiencing and you keep saying, I just don't want to feel this anymore, no matter what, that's a really good time to reach out for help, right? So yeah,
Wow. Now it seems like it's people who are younger and younger who are being seen, or they're clinically depressed
mhm,
now, and some of it could be today, and I still to this day, even though it's been like 2 years, over 2 years since lockdown, and of COVID, I still think we have not seen the full effect of everything that happened you know
you're correct. And then you have, I think, for the younger generation, they are social media generation and the generation of comparing and wanting what you believe other people have because
Mm,
it looks good.
right.
And so then you start to look at your life and like, I'm not going on these trips or I don't look like this in this picture. And I think bullying, as much like, I mean, you have kids now, they're going to school fearful of their lives,
Yeah.
right? Like, am I going to survive today? Because who knows what could happen. And so all of those things, and then just the regular anxiety, and you have anxiety over here, which is like the struggle with the past and where you are, and you have this depression, you have anxiety. It's like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? That stays in your mind all day long. And so you're worried about the future, and nobody's ever just being present in what's happening in this moment. And
Wow.
so it just makes things worse. More.
I heard something a while ago that I do my best to do, to live by, and it says, "Have your mind where your feet are."
I
You know,
like that.
having your mind where your feet are, but it's so easy to really get off from that. I mean, we talked about, like, the mental health side of things, because there's some things that we invite into our world that are truly not healthy for us mentally. I'll give you an example. Like, you brought up social media and how a lot of the younger audiences have grown up with, and even some grown folks, they get depressed from that stuff too.
Understood.
When I grew up, and if I was not invited to a sleepover or something in the fifth grade, I'd find out about it on Monday morning. Now, if I'm not invited to a sleepover, I find out about it within 20 minutes of everybody being at the sleepover. And now
Yeah.
here comes me feeling bad over the weekend, or being depressed, or was I good enough? Then the loneliness
Mhm.
kicks in. So, I mean, how much is social media playing into mental illness right now?
It's playing into it a lot, and there's so much research happening now, and evidence in research showing the impact that it has on younger people's mental health. And like you said, I think even older adults our age mental
Mhm.
health. I'm assuming that you're as old as I am, but even our generation mental health, it's just so significant. And I think a lot of that has to do with people not being comfortable in their skin,
Mm,
right? Which I think it's a huge sign of mental health, right? Like
wow.
wanting to be different, um, and wanting to look a certain way, all maybe because we want to be accepted, right? We
Mm,
want that validation. Um, and that's hard, right? In a world where everybody's getting attention, and then you're like, wait a minute, this person has 18,000 likes. I only got
yeah.
50. What are they doing that I'm not doing? You
Right,
know?
right. Then comes the comparison part
Yes.
of things, you know? The social media topic, I think that can take us all night.
Right.
I wanna go back to,
Yes.
something that we were talking about, like, in the early parts of the mental health discussion. Is it something that people can get over, or they grow out of, or it's here to stay? I've never asked that question or seen it answered before.
It's just like physical health, right? It's a spectrum of different things. You may start out with, like maybe high cholesterol that can be managed by just changing some basic things in your lifestyle. However,
Mhm,
if you ignore it, then it can, grow into something more deadly. Same thing. The basic of mental health is what maybe you ask all your friends on a scale of 1 to 10, how many of you are feeling stress levels at 5 and higher, and if
mhm.
9 of them say they are, that's the start of a mental health crisis if they're not addressing that, right? Because
Wow.
stress in your everyday life leads to premature death. If you're stressed in your work life and you're not addressing that, that unrelenting stress leads to burnout, which you may be hearing a lot about now, right?
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
Well, especially in healthcare, which is where a lot of my focus is currently. And so that burnout then turns into the suicidal ideation because it's not being addressed.
So is it almost like, now is the suicide rate higher now than it's ever been before? Because of, like, mental health issues?
Yes, it is. Much higher, like just in our younger people, even older adults, certain professions that, we're noticing it in
Mhm.
more. It's common, and I can tell you that, let's say I may have, be seeing like 10 adolescents, and half of them have thought about killing themselves, you
Wow.
know. Mhm. They
I
feel like it's an easier option because life is so hard.
I wanna tell people, you talked about adolescence, and I think, for anyone listening to this right now, and if you're tuning in, if you're talking to someone who may have a mental health issue, or you yourself are experiencing a mental health issue, please contact a doctor or a licensed professional as
Yeah.
soon as possible. So I wanna definitely put that disclaimer in there,
Yeah.
for us. So, mental health, it's become so common now, where is it something that should be medicated? I'm not asking for advice, but what type of health is there besides like therapy? Is there medication? What else can people do?
Yeah, depending on what is happening, there are different types of evidence-based treatments and therapies. Same thing with medication. Some people require medication. It could be beneficial to have both, the medication, because that could be only 50%, and then you go and you work with a therapist on how to make different changes with your thought processes and your emotions. So it varies, with all the things, people can become distressed just by watching the news because they don't censor anything, right?
Yeah.
So they're showing someone getting shot. That can be a trauma for somebody. We call that secondary traumatic stress when you're being exposed to different things like that. So
Mm.
it there's no limit on how a person can be impacted by life. And so with that, there are multiple ways to even maintain physical health. It's just like physical health and mental health. It's just like if we say exercise, do all these things so you can maintain good physical health, you have to do the same thing to maintain good mental health. Why are we not requiring people to get a yearly mental health checkup? Right? Why is that not something that
Good point. That's a good point.
people are doing? We're sending them to do physical health, but the mind, body, and soul, they're all important parts of what happens. So yeah.
You brought something up just now about even newscasts, because truthfully, you could just be walking by in the kitchen. If the news is on in the kitchen, you've just absorbed 8 seconds of, a shooting or whatever it is, whatever horrible incident it is that's on the news. And now you have either anxiety or you have stress. And so now, do you think like programming and like people like news stations that they should be more aware of what they're airing?
Yes, I do. I know that, I think, and I don't watch the news often. So I know that, I think it was on the other day, and this lady said, this may be too graphic. And then they immediately, went to the person being shot. And I was
Wow.
like, you didn't even give anybody, 10 seconds to
Or,
turn
or
it off.
even why, or even why show it?
Yeah, right. So I do, and then what's the point? What is the purpose of that? Showing this person being shot. And,
Mhm.
that's not helpful.
Yeah, I had this situation happen with one of my littles, and she said, "Dad, I want TikTok." And she said she wanted TikTok, um, so that she wouldn't feel left out, so that she wouldn't feel left out. And I will be honest with you, we caved on her, and she's a very, very responsible young lady, but all she uses it for is to just make these little things for herself, not really to converse with anyone else at all. But do you think, like social media in teenagers, especially, that it's healthy, or should they do social media like they do beer? You got to be over a certain age to be able to do this.
That is an interesting question because I do believe, just like adults, some adults can't, they develop addictions and alcoholism. So I don't think it's just
Mm,
about age. I think it's about, where a person is emotionally. One of the things that's missing, I know we've been talking a lot, like you hear in this, critical race theory. Can we teach kids social emotional learning skills? Can we get back to that? Can we start to teach people emotional intelligence? Yes, we want to have the smartest kid in school in terms of what they know, but how are they smart with their emotions? We don't teach a lot of emotional intelligence at all, which
wow.
helps with the mental health journey that individuals go on, right? So, yeah.
Well, I mean, if social media is powerful enough to influence elections, imagine what it can do to a teenager, right?
That's it.
So I think that's something to think about there. It's just so much stuff. I mean, what do you think about like even business owners, entrepreneurs? Do you see even some of those professionals have a lot of mental health issues?
Yeah, a lot of what I do currently is I do work here within helping, care team members, healthcare members address their burnout and stress, and also outward facing businesses and organizations and universities deal with, and just kind of creating, if not, then creating that space within your organization to support mental health, right? It doesn't always have to be there's a mental health crisis, but how do we also maintain mental health with our employees, because that you want them to be healthy so they can continue to perform. And I think part of it is, again, we are a society that believes our brains are supposed to go 24/7, and that's not true. Our brains are not designed to be 24/7. And the
Wow.
more successful you are is the how hardest you're working. And I think that's still a part of the culture. And so people are burning themselves out to work hard. And then we have, and maybe it's to support their family,
The hustle
or
mentality.
the hustle mentality, and which is good because I do a lot, which I enjoy. However, I take care of myself 24 hours a day. Most people say, I'll go on vacation. When if you're waiting to go on vacation 6 months from now, that is not the best form of self-care. Self-care needs to be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Wow. I mean, what
Yeah.
what are some things that you recommend for self-care since you brought up that topic?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. The first thing I recommend is you can't care for yourself if you have no self-awareness, right? So what is happening on just by you breathing right now? Like I just go through the day and I just make sure I'm breathing, inhaling through my nose, exhaling through my mouth, slowing and turning off any stress response systems that may be activated because you don't want that going on and on and on throughout the day. Because then that stress, that cortisol is going to be released at night. You're not going to sleep well, and it's going to cause all kinds of health problems. So making sure you're breathing. What are you feeling? What emotions am I having? What is my mind telling me? Really not functioning on autopilot,
Right.
being very intentional
Good point.
about how you want to be in each and every moment of your day. Instead of reacting to the day, you are setting up your day because you're saying, these are the things I know I want to be a part of my day. And it could be something as simple as, I just want to make sure I'm kind to 10 people today,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I want to make sure I'm showing patience by, not sticking at my middle finger at somebody on traffic because, it can be so many different things, but just set an attention every single day. When you wake up, before you get on your iPhone, just take in a deep breath, assess how well you've slept and what you might need to get through the day. So that's
Hmm.
kind of my thing.
I know there's some good tips too. I started practicing meditation, and my wife says to me, she's like, "I could tell if you don't meditate," and that lets me know that it helps me. And I want to talk about a topic now that's a big one, and this is actually like how I just started saying I need to talk to Tanelle and get her on was the work life balance one, and you'll notice that a lot of successful people, especially millionaires, billionaires, it seems they don't have the best marriages, you know? And you would think one would think like, you know what, if I had billions of dollars, we'd be better off, but there has to be some kind of work life balance or some kind of issue in between that causes wedges. So do you see work life balance, especially today, being a big issue in business?
I'm so glad you said that because I don't believe in the concept of work life balance. Balance suggests that everything is equal and the same amount of time,
Mm,
and that work is separate from your life. And my thing is, and you've heard this quote, wherever you go, there you are, right?
mm,
So it's not balance. I don't teach balance. I teach work life harmony. And how do you make music out of your life? There are going to be moments where you have to identify what matters most, your family or your career. There
uh,
might be moments where you're at work and you will have your family with you. You might be with your family and work will be a part of that experience. So to start off by that, Eric, I really get people to identify their purpose.
mm,
Maybe it's your professional purpose, maybe it's your purpose in just life in general,
yeah,
right? So if you're a professional and if I say, tell me the purpose in what you do, and if you explain that to me, then I might say, now write a reason statement that you're the best person to do that. Now list all of the priorities. You have physical, mental, you have physical, emotional, personal, intellectual, spiritual, all these different areas of our lives. What is the time that you want to spend in each of these?
right.
How can you make it a part of your day, even when you're at work? So, for example, I don't know if you sit down all day, Eric, but
I
can
have a
you,
stand desk.
Right. So even in
Sometimes I
that,
stand
can
up.
you make because when people say, I don't have time to exercise because I'm at work all day. Can you make time for like a 10-minute jumping jack? Like it doesn't have to be where people believe they have to put themselves in a box. I don't have time to join a gym. I can't do this. It's really learning how to integrate all these areas in your life wherever you are, it,
Hmm.
but also recognizing, here's the question I always ask you, what matters most? If you
Mm,
haven't identified what matters most, then it's going to be hard to develop that harmony.
mm.
And if you use your phone, these are great devices.
Yeah.
Do you have only work stuff on your phone? You don't
Guilty.
have on there, let me
Guilty.
take a 5-minute break. Let me make sure I'm eating and nourishing myself. Let me make sure I am stretching my body. So if you use your phone for just meetings, then that's all your brain is going to focus on. It needs to include everything. Let me take this, let me put on my calendar at 2 o'clock, call and tell my family members that I love them and care about them.
Wow.
Anything. To add the health stuff as well as the work stuff to the thing that you use the most to get you to work, right?
Hmm.
So just a few things to start to shift a person's perspective about work-life balance and just changing how you function in your day. But you have to have a purpose. Most people are just floundering because they don't know what their purpose is. They're just reacting to life, which is why most people believe if the more money I have, the happier I'm going to be.
Yeah.
Um,
I
now,
agree with you. I agree with you. I think honestly, people they may flounder. They may flounder around, or they may just they may not know what their bliss is. They may
yeah,
not know what their happiness is, and so they are just being,
yeah.
and
The,
here comes the perpetual, I'm gonna leave this job, and if I go to this job, I'm happier, and I go to that job and I'm happier. And then 8 years down the road, they're still unhappy and they're still the same person.
yeah. I would like to counter that. You said being, I think people are doing. So I tell people we are human beings, not human doing, but we're constantly trying to do everything we can
Wow.
to be seen, to be liked, to make money, to do all these things versus just being. Think
Mhm.
about it. When's the last time you went to a concert or a show and you see everybody which I don't like to go to them because all you see are phones in the air. Nobody wants to just connect with their five senses anymore and be present, right? You got to record and show you where this place versus being in this moment and seeing this person and looking at them through your eyes, not through holding up a phone, can be so impactful. You can imagine the amount of ease your mind will have if you're able to just do something as simple as that. We're
Wow.
constantly ready to just look through this lens, which alters everything, versus what do your own eyes see, right? We just don't do that at all.
There's the phones keep coming up. There's phones and this social media stuff. So just get rid of phones. That's it. Get rid of them. But the phones, I don't think the phones were designed to be the tool that they are. And you're right. I mean, I think we allow them to do. We give them the power that they have over
Yeah,
us. I know that I'm so guilty of it. I'm very guilty of it. And I like the way you put the work life balance, because I always felt like I used to have a really unorganized work schedule, and then I started creating something called rhythms, right?
mhm,
And I talked to our team about being able to have rhythms, and I said either you run your day or your day runs you. You're only going to get 8. You're going to only get 24, and out of that you divide it 8, 8, 8. That's it.
yeah,
And so I always say to them, like, set yourself a normal time to have lunch. Set yourself a normal time for you to be able to walk, get away from the computer, and do some things, and that way you can actually try and work in harmony. See, me, I love what I do so much that I could do it 10, 12 hours a day. Not everyone's
yeah.
built that way, but I've
Mhm.
had friends say, you know what, man, you're gonna get burned out. It's like, it's not really the work that burns me out. It's dealing with people that burn me out. It's the people
Yeah.
part, you know?
Yeah, it's staying connected. So also I think, people are constantly searching and saying they want to be happy.
Mhm.
Happiness means that something has to happen in order for you to feel that way. You're waiting for something to give you this. So I like to focus on joy and gratitude.
Mm.
And do you know that if a person practice a gratitude practice every day, it will naturally improve their mood. You just you write down at the end of your day 3 things that you're grateful for. Just
Mm.
doing that can be so beneficial in overall mental health. Um, it's just that, a lot of people don't do that. And if they do that, that can be just magnificent. Like I can't even
Man.
express the amount of research and how it's shown the impacts to mental health by just writing out 3 things you're grateful for every single day, or
You
some
brought
type of gratitude practice.
how do you practice gratitude? I mean, because these things sound amazing, but then some people are like, okay, this sounds good, but how do I do it?
You just, again, at the end of the day, and I like to tell people to write things out, because when you write things out, it allows your brain to actually see it. And if you have unhealthy thoughts, then your brain can also start to challenge those. Sometimes we keep these unhealthy thoughts in our head, and
Hmm.
so they don't get out, and we don't make sense of them, and so we buy into them all the time.
Hmm.
And so there's a huge struggle. So writing out, again, 3 things. Hey, you know what? I'm grateful that I made it home safely. I'm grateful that I was able to afford my lunch today. I'm grateful that I, was able to be a part of this meeting and not go off. Whatever it is, it can
Yeah.
be anything big or small, but just writing out things that you recognize, that the day brought you, because we do focus when you're stressed, your brain actually goes into what we call negativity bias. And so that's when it's constantly looking for, searching for, reacting to, responding to negative stimuli a
Wow.
lot quicker than positive. And so taking this moment to say, a lot's happened in my day, but really, what's been some good parts of it? What am I grateful for? I'm grateful that I can write, this message out because I have both in my hands. It can be anything,
Yeah.
but just doing it every day can be impactful.
Yeah, we all definitely need to be humbled. Like you bring up that point about having both of your hands to be able to write with, and then there's some people who may not have their hands, and then they are the happiest people ever. You know,
Yeah.
um, that is true. Golly, man. So we talked about the work life balance, and I
Okay.
think this one ties into all of it.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Will Smith, and I know it's far far gone. It's already happened a long time ago, but like for a situation like that, for uh, a Will Smith, and I'm not going to get on Will's side or Chris Rock's side, and because that's none of my business. But in order for somebody to behave like that, they had to have been going through a lot, and I think, in my opinion, it had to have been some type of you know pent up frustration, and it just let out at one point. You know, is that kind of a sign of a stress or a mental illness, you believe?
It definitely can be. Stress, just like I said, stress by itself can cause irritability, agitation, and aggression.
Mm,
And so if you're not addressing that stress and whatever else, and I don't know what he's gone through personally, but and whatever else someone's going through, it can definitely impact your behavior, right? So in that moment, again, I think, like I said, people were very critical. And so even if he was struggling with mental health, he's either probably not going to get the help he needs, or,
mm,
you never know, versus if he'd have gone on the stage and passed
right,
out, we
right.
probably would have been more concerned in that regard versus, hey, can we get help? But I think, kind of the things that I saw where people were like being joking about where he is. And I think that's also a barrier to people like reaching out and asking for help, because
Mhm.
they don't want people to, label them as crazy and I've heard a lot of those labels about him, and just in general, you just kind of see people say, or they'll say, man, that girl bipolar. I'm not from Charleston, but that's the kind of, man. And I'm like, well, that's not really your place to decide
Right, you
that. And
can't diagnose someone as that, you know?
yeah,
So, I mean, how
exactly.
about the company you keep, though? I mean, we talked about, like, devices being able to do this and some of what society is. How about the people that you're around? I mean, they could bring about that stress on you too, right?
Yeah, there are people who struggle with people pleasing and, again, low self-esteem. And so all those different things, if you're in an unhealthy relationship, there's so many different dynamics. Like I said, just kind of everyday living can impact your mental health. It's not
Mhm,
just you have to wait to something, to you're hearing voices to believe that you have to go talk to somebody. It's just life can be hard and challenging. And so, again, just talking to somebody, to even see if you're, taking good care of yourself, or just getting tips every day can be helpful. You don't have to wait till there's a crisis to talk to somebody.
Yeah, I always believe that people behave differently in different platforms, because let's just say, using me as an example, I am Eric, the business guy, then I'm Eric, the husband, I'm Eric, the dad, and I'm Eric, the friend when I am out with my friends, but I'm still the same Eric. But there are some people, it could be me too, where people don't perform in all those areas, where they do well in one. They may do great as family, but they might be awful in everything else. And I'm wondering, how do people keep up, and how do you live the four separate lives?
Well, I can tell you, I don't live four separate lives. I always think about, again, what matters most to me and what are my values. So
Mm,
I'm like, we work for organizations, and like, I don't know, if you have a mission, like a business have a mission statement. I have a
mhm.
mission statement for just being a human. And so in my mission
Wow.
statement, then I have my core values and I have a vision for myself. And so I strive to do that every day. So I'm not trying to be different with these different people. I'm just trying to live by my values. And so if I value kindness, then my goal is to, no matter where I am, lead with that kindness. Or if I'm in a place and I have these two different choices, I'm going to choose the action that's more aligned with what I value,
Oh my
not how people want me to be.
I am going to tweet that out today, and I'm going to tag you on that. It's that just like a company has a mission statement, so the person needs one too.
Yeah.
Gosh, I never thought of that. I never thought of that before. You just given us all kind of jewels today. I appreciate that. Again, I want to encourage people, if they are going through any type of mental illness, or even marriage issues, to reach out to someone, because there's a possibility you could speak with a professional like Tenelle or someone else in that industry that could actually align you and bring you back to exactly where you need to be. Um, have you seen it where, like, well, you talked about marriage where one partner could bring down the other, or vice versa, or they both can be down at the same time? And what do you do in a situation like that? Because if they're both going through it, they probably don't recognize what's happening.
Yeah, it's just, again, getting them back to what is the purpose, again, that whole purpose. What's the purpose of marriage, right? So I had them define the purpose. Then what is the reason the two of you believe you're supposed to do this purpose together? If you
Hmm.
can't figure that out, then it's going to be
Wow.
hard for you to
Yeah.
function together. Yeah. Because most
Oh
people
man.
get married for different reasons, maybe financially. And so all those things, the reasons you got married, is going to impact how you relate to one another. And here's another
That's
part.
pretty
You
strong.
got to make space for growth and evolution in the marriage. Most people get stuck on what you were this way when we met. So then we're not talking. And I think this is just true of relationships in general, not just marriage, but friendships, families, like really learning to define and check in and see where you are constantly, instead of all of a sudden it's 5 years and you don't like this person because you aren't
Right.
even communicating, right?
Right.
Which is when people come and see me, the biggest thing they say, well, we need to communicate. Well, communicate is just about words and body language. So let's like really talk through that a little bit, learn how to do that differently.
Hmm.
So it's reconnecting to what is it that you want in terms of this relationship with this person. And some people can make it work and some people can't. And I think that's okay. Is that learning when to leave health in a healthy way versus leaving in a toxic way where you're verbally or physically destroying other people, because that's not okay.
What are some things that people can do to have successful marriages? I mean, we talked about like the oneness, being one with yourself, and and breathing and taking time. What are some things that they can do to make sure that their marriage has a is healthy?
Yeah, again, if you work for I think most marriages have a business like component to it. So set your weekly meetings to make sure you guys are talking about the things that's going on in your household, because maybe life is so busy you don't have that opportunity. Have weekly meetings with each other, right? Figure out what interests you about that other person, making sure you're sharing how you're growing, how you're changing, doing things, being present. Because you can work 90 hours a day And if you come home with your partner, and if you're present with them for 10 minutes, they're not timing you. They're just paying attention to how present you are. But if you're there for 10 minutes and you're looking at your watch or you're on your phone, that's not being fully present. So learn how to be fully engaged and present when you're in anybody's space, right? Like that's so meaningful. It can be very, very, even if you have kids, like kids they're not like coming to me and saying, my dad only spent 5 minutes with me, unless in that 5 minutes, he's not even paying attention to the kids. So
Wow.
just really learn to be present and give people your full attention and just redefine what marriage is. I've realized, Eric, that a lot of people when they get married, they don't even talk about these things like finances, parenting, communication, social life. When we get this age, they just kind of just get in it, they feel it, and then boom, life happens. So constantly reevaluating the things that are important. Your values, my values, have they shifted? How does that make, what are our values as a couple? Having a
Mhm.
mission statement as a family, like so
Right.
many different things you can do to build your
Man,
relationship.
that's some good stuff. I want to first, thank everybody for giving us their attention today. I
Thank you.
really want to thank them for that. Tanelle, I mean, tell me, tell people exactly like how to find you. Do you service people just in South Carolina or around the world? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, so I do have a private practice in South Carolina, but I'm also, if you have a business or organization, that you need support with, you can email me, you can call me or text me. I don't know if you have a way to make my contact information, but the easiest way, if you want to email me, is Tenelle O. Jones LLC at outlook.com. So just reach out if you have any questions. Even if I can direct you to where you need to go, I don't have a problem doing that.
That's
So
awesome. So you can help, individuals and you can help businesses too. One
yes,
one of one of my favorite shows is Billions on Showtime. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
so
And they have this therapist on staff, and her name is Wendy. So when you go in to see Wendy, Wendy fixes you.
yes,
I definitely want to put that out there. I'll put your email address out there as well.
thank
And
you.
I want to thank you for being an awesome guest today. And for those of you, again, if you feel that you need some help, you need to talk to someone, make sure that you reach out
Lady,
to a licensed professional like Tenelle. And also, I want to thank you guys for giving us your most valuable asset, which is your time, right? And what's that line
yes,
you said? Wherever you are, there you go.
yes.
All right. So,
Thank
Tanel, I want to thank you.
you.
Thank you so much for being an amazing guest. And this is the AdCast. Thank you. Hey guys, I'm back. I hope that you enjoyed that episode of the AdCast. If you didn't, go online, give me a review, and tell me how you want us to make it better for you. And if you did, give us a 5-star rating anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast. But I want to thank you for your most valuable asset. That's your time, and thank you for listening. Enjoy the AdCast, and stay tuned for another hot episode coming up soon.